The views and opinions heard on this show do not necessarily reflect the views of the host.
There had to be someone, not something, because things wear out, second law of thermodynamics. There had to be someone without beginning or end who had the power and the knowledge, the wisdom, the incredible, infinite intelligence to put all this together, from the organization of the atom to the cosmos and so forth.
When we look at the many examples of God's power, it should invoke a sense of reverence and awe in our hearts.
Truly, our Creator is the God of wonders, and the greatest wonder is His immeasurable love.
Welcome, everyone, to another edition of Real Spiritual Talk Radio. I am your host, Lamont Gates, and upon this show, we examine faith, metaphysicality, and spirituality. And as we continue with this series of near-death experience accounts, I am joined today by an experiencer who decided to take his life, but at the same time, find his life. Let's get it started. Ladies and gentlemen, joining me via telephone is near-death experiencer and author Chris Batts. Chris, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Chris, I want to thank you for coming on and sharing your account. As many of the people I've interviewed, yours is also a very deep near-death experience. But I also realized that reading over your paperwork that your life in general was very deep. So why don't we just go backwards, as I like to do very often here on the show, and talk to me about your upbringing, your childhood upbringing, as it concerns religion, spirituality, anything you were taught about God or the afterlife, etc.
My guardians that I used to live with were very religious. We're Baptist Christian, and we went to church every Sunday, and basically a lot of days throughout the week we would go to, like on Mondays, Wednesday afternoons, sometimes Friday nights for, Bible studies and choir rehearsals and all this. So we would always be somewhere in church.
You mentioned your guardians. Were you adopted at some point?
I was in the system when I was younger, because my mom lost me when I was 6 months old because she threw me in the dumpster at 6 months old. And that's when she lost me to a court judge. Judge said she will no longer she can never see her son again. So I stayed with my grandma for about a couple years till my grandma got sick with a nervous breakdown. My father, I never met him. So he was never in the picture ever, not even for the first 6 months. So my grandma, I was with her for a couple years. She got sick with a nervous breakdown. So then that's when I moved into a house with cousins and my another aunt and uncle that I had.
And so you were adopted by your own family?
Yes.
So it's with this family you got your religious training?
They were involved in it, yes.
So how did religion fit in to your life at this point?
Because I was so young, I was forced to be there. And I was basically, my times in church, I don't really remember what I learned from the pastors besides, if you sin, you're going to go to hell. And the aunt and uncle that I did live with and their kids, they always scared us into just being quiet during the church service. And if you talk, you're going to get a whooping when you get home. And like I said, I was so young that I didn't really know anything. I had questions, but whenever I would ask questions, I would get in trouble.
I see. So they had some sort of iron fist over you.
Oh, yeah.
As many in the more conservative movements do. So walk us through your teenage years. Were you able to ask these questions then?
Well, during my teenage years, I was in another home. I've been to a few homes in my life. So I was already out of this home that I just told you about. I was already had my own opinion about religion, and I wasn't going to. I sometimes went to church with my aunt, another aunt of mine, my grandma's sister. I went to church with her sometimes, But eventually when I hit maybe like 14 or 15, I just stopped going altogether.
Right, as many teens do as their cognitive development changes along with their environment. So how old were you when you had your near-death experience?
Oh, man, I believe I was like 25. It's been about maybe 7 years ago, or a little bit more than 7 years ago.
I know you said you went from home to home. What were things like after you phased out of the transitioning from home to home?
Well, 17, I moved out on my own. So I was still a teenager in high school, and I did move out on my own for the first time. And my views on religion and everything like that, I believed in God, of course. I believed there was a God. I believed there was a higher source, but I just didn't believe everything I was taught was true, especially with the people the past families that I have lived with. They were very mean and abusive. Like, they were all child abusers. And being abused like that, it made me question. It made me say, and then a lot of their friends were like them too. So I would say, well, this is the church I'm going to, and these are the religion that I'm around. I don't want any part of it, because the God that I'm thinking exists cannot be as mean as these people.
I'm thinking with all of that neglect and abuse, it must have weighed on your self-esteem, no?
Oh, yes. Before my near-death experience, like even all the way up to then, I had no self-esteem. That was all stripped away when I was a little kid.
So explain to us how your near-death experience was prompted.
Okay, so as I got older, I was really popular in high school and everything like that. But before that, like elementary, junior high, I had a lot of suicidal thoughts already. But high school, all those thoughts went away. After high school, I had a job, everything was good. And then a few years later, I guess maybe about 23, 24, I'd say about maybe 22, 23 years old, that's when the suicidal thoughts started coming back. And it started getting more and more heavy on me. And I didn't have anyone to talk to about it. Like, no one. Because like a lot of the friends I had, they weren't really my friends, but I was their friends. I didn't have any family to depend on. So it's like I was basically all by myself. So I just ended up getting more and more into like drugs and drinking and all that different stuff. And then I got bored of that. So I just said, you know what? I'm sick of all these pills and all this other stuff that's altering my mind. I'm not going to let this control me. I'm not going to let anybody control me. I'm going to take myself out on my own. So I started coming up with the plan, a part of suicidal thoughts. You actually have a plan before you do it. And I started planning and planning. Like I said, there was no one to talk me away from this. So I went through with it.
And what exactly was this plan that you eventually carried out?
Okay, well, the first plan, I was supposed to drown myself in water. Then I said, well, no, that'd be too easy. I need to drown. So I came up with another plan a few months later, which was to go, and this took about maybe 3 months plan. Because I timed the trains. I wanted to sit in front of a train, lay down and hit. And I timed the times that they come every day. So I just picked which train I wanted to meet at that train track and go right in front of it. That day of my near-death experience, my plan got ruined because I actually was with a friend of mine, and we were just talking, and I left their house, and they knew something was going on. So I left their house, and I'm walking, and I'm close to this train track, and I just see their car pass by. They say, Dan, get in the car, get in the car. So I'm like, oh, there goes that plan. The thing was, my grandma had talked to my mom and gave her my number. Weird enough, she called me that day at that very moment when I was in the car with my friend. And as I'm talking to my mom, she says, I want to let you know, I don't want you. I'm not your mother. Don't claim me as your mom. I don't want you. I never have. And said some other mean things, but I'm not going to get into that right now. So basically, my self-esteem was already shot as it was. So after talking to my mom, while I'm in my friend's car, I took my phone, I rolled down the window, and I tossed it out. I looked at my friend and I said, F this. I opened the door and I jumped out.
So you jumped out of a moving vehicle.
I jumped out of a moving car. So I guess at that point I said, since I can't plan to do it, since I can't do it my way on the train, I'm just going to do it now, right here and now.
How fast do you think this car was going exactly?
I have been asked that question and I really don't know, but all I can say, after it made a right turn at the corner, I just remember saying F this and jumped out.
Okay, take us to what happened next after you jumped out of the car.
Okay, so after I jumped out of the car, I remember as the back of my head hitting the concrete. And I just remember something telling me like I wouldn't do that because I kept trying to get up. I didn't know I was hurt. I was going to get up and walk home because I forgot what had happened and where I was and who I was with. But I just knew something, I felt light. So then literally as I'm trying to pull myself up, I feel my spirit ripped out of my body. And then I took about 2 or 3 steps thinking I'm going to walk home. And then poof, I'm in the air. I literally seen angels. I seen how big they were, what they looked like. And they were telling me everything's going to be okay. I was scared. They're telling me everything's going to be okay. You're with us. We love you. And, ended up telling me to look down on the street. So I looked down at the street and there was my body. So I'm like, wait, how am I looking at my body? But I'm standing right here. And one of the angels said, yeah, this stuff really happens. You are dead. And, I saw the paramedics over me and they're like, so basically they are declaring you as dead. But right now you're in a coma. So they told me to look down. So I looked down again and they zoomed in like a camera. And then they said, now, do you want to stay or do you want to go with us? Do you want to go with us or do you want to go back to where you were? Well, you need to go back because you have a lot to do. No, they said you have so much to do for so many people. And I didn't get it then. I thought I was destined for hell because I was growing up and all the religion and all that they scared into me. Like if you say you're going to hell, that's all my religion was about. And of course, suicide is like the unforgivable sin in the religion that I came up in. So I just seen all these Bibles being tossed around and crosses everywhere. So I'm like, oh my God, okay, I'll go back to earth and read the Bible right now. But it wasn't about that. What the angels were telling me was that I'm scared. Like I was scared of all the stuff that I was taught.
So were you in another unearthly place or just still above your body as they were communicating this to you?
I was in the clouds. Like I was close enough to where I can actually look and zoom down and then I can see my body. But I do know I was way up in the sky. I do know that. And there was like this little circle. If I would have stepped into this circle, I would not have came back.
I've read in several near-death experiences about borders and how they typically can't be crossed. And if they did, it would result in permanent death. But take us through what happened next.
So after I went back into my body, because I told them, I said, okay, you know what? I'll go back. They were telling me how special I am, how loved I am, how everybody's loved. And then before this happened, I forgot to mention before I even met my angels, I was like in this void. I wasn't anywhere. And that's where I felt the presence of God/source. And, I say source because people have so many names for him, you know? So I had so many questions in my mind already. God/source can really read your mind. He knows your thoughts. So all these questions I had were answered before I even asked them out loud. They were just in my mind. And mentally, telepathically, he says, I am God. Yes, I am real. Yes, angels are real. They're a gift from me. Want to meet them? I said no, because I didn't believe in angels. So as we're going on, he's telling me he loves me. And he's saying that he'll go to the end of the world so everyone is with him. Basically, he's just saying how he loves us all and he has no favorites. And he was showing me this video, like this projection screen of like a skateboarder and then like a prostitute and then of a drug addict and of all these, and then of a businessman in a suit with a briefcase. He showed me all these different people and said I love them all the same.
Extremely interesting. Did you have a life review at all?
I did not have life review. I didn't go. If I would have crossed into that circle, I'm definitely sure I would have. But I guess they didn't want me to cross just yet. So, but they left it up to me. My angels left it up to me. Do you want to stay or go? But I just said, okay, I'll go back to Earth.
So what happened next?
So after that, I told them, I said, well, are you guys going to go with me? They're like, no, we're not allowed to touch the ground. I'm like, why not? They're like, if our feet touch the ground, like half your city will be destroyed. You know, like we can't, cause the angels had so much light on them that it's dangerous.
Wow. Sounds like a scene out of Sodom and Gomorrah to me.
Yeah. And it's like, and if they actually if they actually put one foot on Earth, boom, we probably see like a big explosion or something.
Spiritual nuclear weapons. Wow. Scary. So they give you their reasoning for not following you back. Then what occurred?
Also, they said, you know what, but like, we love you. You should go. Yeah, someone should do it for so many people. And you don't get it now, but you will. And I'm like, and then they're like, don't be scared. It's okay. It's okay. Cause I was freaked out of my mind. But, they kept telling me like, don't be scared. It's okay. It's all right. I'm like, but I killed myself. It's okay. We love you. It's okay. It's okay. Don't worry. And, they didn't judge me or anything like that. And when I felt God's presence, and I cannot believe I forgot to bring this up, as God was introducing himself, telling me who he was and showing me all these projection screen and everything like that, I can feel him. I can say, if I go back, what am I supposed to explain to people when they ask me, how is he? How is his personality? Like, what am I supposed to say to them? How do I describe you? So then I just feel his presence, like get on the knees. And next thing you know, I just feel the biggest hug I've ever had in my life. And I did not want that hug to be over.
In other words, he is simply described as love.
Yes. Oh, and I saw a bunch of words like fly up in the air, like in capital letters, like one word. This is all while he's introducing me. And like one word is said like love, another word said humble, another word said long suffering. I remember that one. Long suffering. And then it had exclamation points at the end of that one.
Do you feel those words were somehow a reference to your life?
I think at that time, my personal opinion was I needed the truth. Who is the true God? And at that point, maybe he was explaining to me, introducing himself to me, like, let me reintroduce myself to you kind of thing. This is how I am. This is how I am. So now I'm hoping that you go back to Earth. Like, that's what I'm thinking his whole point was.
So what was it like going back into your body?
A few days later, I woke up in the hospital and the nurses called me Miracle because they said they thought I was gone. And, they said they couldn't believe I woke up, and I didn't remember anything that happened until days later when I was being wheelchaired out of the hospital. Now, mind you, I had a lot of damage. Like, my face was all messed up. I had road rash everywhere, and then, like, I couldn't smell. I couldn't taste. I couldn't even talk, like, at all. I couldn't even walk. I had to learn how to walk and then all that. And so when I was wheelchaired out of the hospital, I remember being in front of the hospital and I looked up at the sky. It was sunny and clear. Like there was not one cloud in the sky. And I remember seeing like the horizon of the mountain. And I looked up and I saw the sun. It looked so beautiful. And then for some reason I felt free and lifted. And I felt like I don't have to be scared anymore. And like of death. And that's when I remembered. I said, oh my God, something happened to me. And that's all I knew. I didn't know what a near-death experience was. I just was like, something happened to me. So that's when I started recovering, learning how to walk again, and tried to make my tongue not get stuck when I try to say a certain word. I started getting my smell back. Eventually, I started getting my taste back. So after all these, I'm looking on Google and everywhere else, trying to see what happened. And that's when I discovered, okay, I had a near-death experience.
And after you realize this, I know people who have near-death experiences either say one of two things happen. They either keep it to themselves or they yell it to the rooftops so others can hear it. What did you do?
I'm just going to give you a clue. It took me 6 years to come out to the world with my story. I kept it a secret for a long time.
How did others react to your account when you finally revealed it to them?
The first person that I told I was with them during this near-death experience, a friend I was with, they didn't believe it. They said I was just dreaming. That kind of stuff isn't real. Eventually, I started finding people in the near-death experience NDE groups, and I started looking on Facebook and everything, and then I started telling more people from the groups because I knew they wouldn't judge me, and I knew they would sort of understand me because I was looking at some of the same stories happening to other people. So more and more people got wind of it and then started reaching out to me like, oh, I'd love to hear your story. I believe you. You're not crazy. Eventually, I started telling people I knew a little bit before I published my book. So coming out with my near-death experience to the world, I say it took about 2 years before I actually told people that I know personally. And that's because I was publishing a book and I had to tell them what the book is about. So that's when I started telling them. And I have got a lot of positive feedback. I was surprised. Lots of people believe me, and a lot of people are like, oh my God, why didn't you tell me this before?
Yeah, and I think the takeaway from your experience is that, number one, God exists. Number two, the soul does survive physical death. And number three, and probably most important, is that suicide does not necessarily separate you from God. In fact, my theory is that it's not what you do so much, it's why you did it. In other words, God looks at the intention over the act.
Yeah, and there's one thing I do need to sort of clarify, because I know some people might get the wrong idea and they'll get confused. So when you say God, he introduced himself as God to me because that's what I knew him as. If I were to know him as Jose, he would have said, I am Jose. I am real. You know what I mean? Like, if I were to know him as like Jehovah or whoever, he's that person. He was just letting me, he comes to your own level and speaks your language so you can understand.
Fascinating. What is the name of your book and where can people find it?
The name of the book is Boom, The Life and Time of a Suicide Near-Death Experiencer. And you can get this on Amazon and Kindle as well.
That's Boom, B-O-O-M, correct?
Yeah, Boom, yeah, B-O-O-M.
So is there anything else you'd like to say about death, God, or suicidal ideation to those listening out there?
Yes, I can say if you have these suicidal thoughts, that's not going to separate you from God's love, but it's better if you don't go through with it, because you can honestly get messages from God and source, and basically, if you change the way of thinking, you can basically focus on people who do love you. And there are people who do love you. Though there seemed like there weren't people that loved me, I figured out there were people who did. I didn't know that. So for whoever is suicidal, there is someone who does love you, and you need to tell someone about it. I didn't. So I really hope that you guys do.
I'd also like to say that you were told that you served a purpose here. So although your suicide did not necessarily separate you from God, you had an earthly mission to carry out here. So suicide wasn't the way either.
Yes, just so does everybody. Everybody has a reason here. Everybody.
Chris, I thank you for coming on, sharing your account. It was just wonderful. I think you answered many questions concerning whether one is loved on that side and the many questions people may have about suicides and how they're treated.
I hope so. That's really what I would love to do. And I thank you for having me on your show.
Absolutely. Much light and success to you and your book.
Oh, thank you so much, and much love and light to your show.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, Chris Batts, extraordinary account. And I want to thank you all for tuning in. And I hope you've been enjoying these near-death experience series, as you can bet I have been. And please stay with me because I have more to come as we continue on with these near-death experience accounts. I am your host, Lamont Gates, and this is Real Spiritual Talk Radio, which is now signing off.